I am 78 years old. There are days when I wake up already tired, not from my body, but from remembering how long it took me to understand something simple. And there are nights when I lie still staring at the ceiling, thinking about one voice I have not heard in almost 2 decades. My son's. My name is Margaret Hale. I am not telling you this to feel better about myself. I am telling you because I am closer to the end than the beginning, and the truth stops needing decoration when time gets short. For most of my life, people did not respect me, or at least that is how I described it back then. I blamed my boss. I blamed my parents. I blamed my husband. Later, I blamed my children. I spent years believing respect was something you earned by explaining yourself clearly enough, by being reasonable, by proving your intentions were good. I thought if I could just say the right thing in the right tone with enough patience, people would finally understand me and treat me differently. I was wrong, and I taught them how to treat me. When I was younger, in my 30s and 40s, my days were full. I worked long hours. I kept a clean house. I answered every question anyone had for me. If someone challenged a decision I made, I explained it. If they doubted me, I justified myself. If they were unhappy, I tried to fix it. It felt responsible. It felt mature. If my supervisor questioned why I handled something a certain way, I gave him the full story. If my mother disagreed with how I raised my children, I laid out my reasoning point by point, like I was defending a thesis. If my husband dismissed something I said, I stayed up late trying to make him see my side. I thought I was being cooperative. I didn't see that I was shrinking. No one ever told me outright that I needed permission to live my own life. But every time I explained myself when no explanation was owed, I handed that permission away. Slowly, quietly, over and over again. I remember standing in the kitchen once holding the phone between my shoulder and ear, explaining to my mother why we were not coming for Thanksgiving that year. I can still see the light coming through the window dust floating in it. I talked for nearly half an hour. When I finally stopped, she sighed and said, "Well, I still don't think it's right." That was the moment. I just didn't know it yet, because instead of stopping, instead of saying, "This is what we're doing," I kept going. I added reasons. I softened my voice. I tried to make her comfortable with the decision that was already made. I did that everywhere, at work, at home, with friends. And something else happened alongside it. I became afraid of silence. If someone said something cutting, I rushed to respond. If a remark stung, I filled the space immediately. Silence felt dangerous, like losing control. I thought if I didn't answer quickly, I would lose my place, my footing, my relevance. So I talked and talked and talked. I see now that my words were not strength. They were an invitation. Disrespect doesn't usually arrive loudly. It slips in through habits, through small moments you excuse, through relationships you're afraid to lose. And by the time you notice it, it feels normal. It felt normal to me for a very long time. I wish I could say I understood earlier. I didn't. I thought I still had time. By the time I reached my 50s, I had become very good at enduring things quietly. I told myself that was wisdom. That was maturity. That was what grown women did. I had learned how to smile while feeling dismissed, how to nod while feeling small, how to stay seated when everything in me wanted to stand up and leave. The cost didn't come all at once. It never does. It came in missed moments, in conversations I replayed later and wished I had ended sooner, in phone calls I stayed on too long, explaining choices that were already draining me. I kept thinking if I just hold on a little longer, things will settle. If I stay calm, they'll come around. If I don't push back, no one will get hurt. What I didn't understand was that I was the one getting hurt. Quietly, consistently, over years. My son Robert was already an adult by then. He was thoughtful, principled, stubborn, in a way I recognized because it looked uncomfortably like me. He had married a woman who was nothing like I expected. That alone shouldn't have mattered. But I had opinions, and worse, I believe my opinions were helpful. When he finally told me I was crossing a line, I felt offended. I felt misunderstood. I felt disrespected. So I did what I always did. I explained myself. I told him I meant well. I told him I was just worried. I told him I had experience. I told him I was his mother. I talked and talked, believing if I could just make him see my intentions, he would soften. He didn't. He asked me to stop, and I didn't. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't shouting. That's what made it harder to see. I was calm. I was articulate. I was wrong in a very polite way. One afternoon he said something that landed harder than anything else. He said, "Mom, you don't listen, you defend." I laughed it off at the time. I wish I hadn't. The silence that followed later was not dramatic. There was no final argument, no slammed doors. He simply stopped calling. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Birthdays passed. Holidays passed. Life kept moving just without his voice in it. 18 years. That number sits heavy in my chest when I say it out loud. 18 years of not hearing how his laugh changed, of not knowing who he became as a man, of realizing too late that a boundary I thought was negotiable was not. He was willing to lose me to keep his self-respect. I was not willing to lose my pride. That is the truth I live with now. As I grew older, I began to notice something else. The people who seemed most at peace weren't the ones who argued best or explained the most. They were the ones who knew when to stop talking. They were comfortable with silence, with leaving a room, with letting a relationship change or end if it asked too much of them. I didn't have that skill when it mattered most. I spent decades trying to change how people felt about me instead of deciding what I would and would not accept. I kept hoping respect would arrive if I was patient enough, reasonable enough, accommodating enough. It doesn't work that way. Time doesn't announce its turning points. You only see them clearly when you're looking backward from a quieter room with fewer chances left. And that is where I am now. I am 78 now, and the days are quieter than I imagined they would be. Quieter does not mean peaceful. It means there is more room for memory to speak. What I know finally is this: you cannot force respect into a room. You can only decide whether you will stay when it is absent. I spent years believing endurance was virtue. I confused patience with dignity. I thought love meant explaining myself until everyone felt comfortable. It does not. Respect begins the moment you stop auditioning. It shows up when you answer a challenge with fewer words, when you allow silence to stand without rescuing it, when you leave a table where your voice keeps getting interrupted. It shows up when you draw a line and mean it even if your hands shake while you draw it. I learned this too late with my son. I would give anything to sit across from him now and listen without defending. I cannot rewrite that chapter. I can only tell the truth about it. If you're listening to me, you're probably younger than I am. You probably think there is still plenty of time. I thought that too. Time feels generous until it isn't. If this story means something to you, hold it gently. You don't need to confront anyone tonight. You don't need speeches. Just notice where you keep explaining yourself. Notice where you stay longer than you should. Notice the places where silence scares you. That noticing is enough for now. I don't have many years left. I'm not trying to be remembered. I am trying to be honest while I still can. Some losses don't announce themselves. They simply arrive one quiet day and stay. I live with that, and I hope you won't have.